Welcome to Plutus IAS. Today I'm going to discuss a very prominent and the important theory of Alfred Wegener. Alfred Wegener has built a very important theory in geomorphology, which is the plate tectonic theory. I'm talking about this scientist because in even if you're practicing for optional or for the GS, you will hear about Alfred Wegener quite a lot times. So 1912, what happened? Alfred Wegener tried to identify one very important thing, that whether the earth was made like this only, like we see today. Alfred tried to figure out a very prominent thing in the earth's configuration, that whether the earth was built in the same way like we see it today or it was a different in the past. Finally rely on him that the theory that he was telling was right. Now, this all theories and evidences not based on the hunch. It was totally on the evidences that he put forward. But there was certain scientists who said that no, what he did was not right, because the kind of the forces he was explaining, the kind of the evidences he has used is not practical in the present scenario. So, starting from the very first point, Alfred Wegener tried to relate this topic by going into the past. What he used to say, that the earth was made up of one single landmass. If you try to understand different continents which are present on the earth, like North America, South America, Africa, different continents which are present, if we combine all of them, that creates one landmass, or I should say continental landmass, which he called as Pangaea. Pangaea means all earth. It's a Greek word and it means all earth. So he said that this is a Pangaea, which means all earth, and the oceans that you see today, the prominent, the very big oceans like Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, all of them were also one unit. We call them as Panthalassa, which is surrounding one landmass, and this is the landmass is surrounded by all oceans, which we call it as Panthalassa. Now he said that there could be a possibility that something must have happened in the past that has led to the fragmentation of this continents into various parts. Now, what led to all this is still and was the mystery for a lot of scientists. But all the evidences he tried to put forward was not fully justified. So, therefore, we do believe that what Alfred has put was right, but still, there are certain scientists who have tried to falsify his theory. Now, coming to the point number one, which is a Pangaea, which I explained you as, it's a Greek word which means all earth. Now, how he tried to prove his points? So, once what happened, that he tried to understand these continents as a jigsaw puzzle. If you try to fit in the South America with the Africa, you will see that they are snapping together in each other and very smoothly. So that means the coast of the South America would have been separated from the Africa. There could be a possibility. Now, this could be a coincidence also. So he tried to imitate the same thing in the other continents as well. So when he tried to fit in, it was perfectly and remarkably fitting in. So when he tried to understand all of this one by one, he could find that yes, they were fitting in together, and there were some errors here and there that could be ignored, but the larger part of landmass was fitting in. So it proved it further that what he was saying was correct. The point number one is jigsaw fit. Jigsaw fit. The next evidence, which is your point number two, how he tried to explain it. Okay, the second evidence could be the rocks, could be the fossils. So when he tried to understand that the fossils which are found in the South America and the Africa were exactly the same. Now the probability could be that the fossils would have, for example, if I talk about some amphibians or some of the reptiles would have come from Africa to South America, but this proposal was totally denied. Reason being, the reptiles cannot swim such a long distance. If you see the distance between the South America and the Africa, the Atlantic Ocean, which is in between, they're having quite a lot distance. So the possibility of them coming and swimming and coming to the coast of South America is almost negligible. Therefore, the fossils which are found in the Africa especially in the Ghana region, were also found at the coast of South America in Brazil. So when they found the fossils were the same, the reptiles, the fossils were exactly the same, that means this also tried to prove his theory further one step ahead. After this, the second point would be the rocks and fossils. Let's look at the third point. The third point could be the minerals. Like if you see the coast of the Africa, where the Ghana, Ivory Coast, all of these areas are very prominent, very rich in resources, particularly in gold. Now, the fourth point he emphasized on was paleoclimatic data. What does that mean? Paleoclimatic data means that the kind of the fossils which are found in the tropics right now and the possibility of them finding on the tropics are more. For example, if I talk about the coal, the possibility of them finding on the tropics will be more because the density of the fossils are more, your plants, your animals, because the temperature is apt for the humans and the mammals and the different organisms to sustain there. But on the contrary, we found these coals in the frigid zone, in Sweden, in Scandinavian countries, in the sub-Antarctic region. So how is that possible? It takes us to the contrary point that at some point in time, the Antarctic region or the Scandinavian country could be near to the equator. And then through his continental drift theory, where he says the continents have drifted to northwards because of the various forces, they would have taken to the higher latitude. Now try to get it from a very simple example. Sweden is placed at 69° north latitude. That means it is lying in the Arctic Circle. Now the possibility of finding the coal is very, very less. But if you see the regions of Sweden, you'll find the major coal reserve there. So there could be a possibility that these places would have been once in the tropics and now they have been shifted towards the temperate or in the Arctic Circle over the period of time. And similarly, the areas which have gone through the glaciation period, in which the India is also included and Africa is also included, would have been the part of the temperate regions or the Arctic region. Yes, there could be a possibility, and he has proved that so. So paleoclimatic data says that the areas which are the part of the tropics right now would have been the part of the temperate or the Arctic Circle, and vice versa. So through these evidences, he tried to explain all of them very clearly. Now, what forces he talked about? So he has taken into consideration the two forces. One of the forces was the westward drift of the continents, and the one is the equatorward drift. Equatorward. If you closely see and observe the whole continent pattern of the world, the major landmass is concentrated towards the equator and they are distributed sparsely in the Arctic area and temperate regions. So this equatorward movement is because of the centrifugal force. He said there is a centrifugal force being applied on the continents, and because of that, the movement is on the equatorward. And what reasons he gave for the westward movement was not accepted by many scientists. The first one was that because of the gravitational pull of the moon and the sun, there could be the possibility that the continents were drifting towards westward region. For example, if you see North America, they're still moving towards westward. But the reason he gave was totally unacceptable by the scientist. Why? Because the amount of force that you require to move the continents as big as Africa, South America, Asia, it's quite a lot. You cannot move them just by the mere force of gravitational pull. So you require something else, something bigger to prove that. And here he failed. And therefore, there is a criticism for Alfred Wegener that he proved to fail his theory to the fullest. Now comes the another part of the theory where this point was also explained very well, but not by the Alfred Wegener, but by the different scientist. His name was Harry Hess. He has explained his sea floor spreading theory and tried to fill in the gaps and the bridges that the Alfred Wegener theory was throwing. Thank you so much.